everyone. Welcome to Staff Picks, the podcast for movie nerds by movie nerds. As always, I'm Mario Lanza, and I am your host on our journey through the movies out there that just need a little more love. Our movie today is a personal favorite of mine. It actually kind of breaks my rule here. I try not to have a whole lot of modern movies on Staff Picks. I try to do older ones because I've always been of the belief that movies need to be at least 10 years old before you can judge how good they are and how they will be remembered in history. But this is one of those that just barely fits into that 10-year window. It's technically not old enough, but it's one that when I saw it, I immediately thought this is going to be a cult favorite down the road, and we have to talk about it. And the movie I'm talking about, of course, is the 2009 Will Forte vehicle MacGruber, as some would say, one of the only good SNL funny movies. And, that's maybe debatable. We'll talk about that. And my co-host today is a guy who runs a Saturday Night Live podcast. I have actually been on his show before. It's called That Week in SNL. And he is a big SNL historian, as am I. We are competing SNL podcasts. And I'm very excited to have him on the show. Welcome to Staff Picks, Andrew Dick.
How's it going, everyone?
Oh, so excited. I was just on Andrew's show. We talked about the Dolly Parton episode of SNL from 1990, which is one of the most obscure things you could talk about on a podcast. So I'm very excited to have you on as one of these, what's it called, a home and away situation. So welcome to my home.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So before we delve into MacGruber, why don't you give people a little backstory on who you are, what your show's about, and your history with SNL over the years?
All right. Well, my name is Andrew Dick, run That Week in SNL with my co-host Tim Gicali, and we, as you said, explore older episodes of the show, just kind of bounce around eras, season 2 to season 44. We cover them all. Apparently we don't do season 1 for some reason. I don't know why I said that like that. And yeah, so we explore the episodes, and I decided to do that podcast after kind of coming back into the fold of SNL after having been away for a good decade or so. That decade contains MacGruber because I think around 2004-ish is when I had stopped watching the show, and then around 2014 is when I hopped back on. And so I missed pretty much the entirety of the Kristen Wiig, Will Forte, Andy Samberg, Bill Hader era until I went back and rewatched it. And so I missed both this movie, MacGruber, and also Hot Rod, which I guess at this point are pretty much the final SNL movies to come out. It's been, like you said, about a decade, and I don't see them attempting another one right now. I guess it's mostly people moving on to their own television projects.
Wait, you don't think there's going to be a Jacob the Bar Mitzvah Boy movie anytime soon?
I hope not. I love Vanessa, but I mean, I don't even know. That's the thing is, I was thinking about it, rewatching this movie, is what would be a good character from modern day SNL to bring into a movie, and I was stumped. I couldn't quite figure out one that maybe Drunk Uncle.
Wait, how are they gonna make that happen?
I mean, it would be a pretty depressing film, I would imagine, but a fascinating one. I don't know how many characters have like a sort of life that you can imagine outside of their sketches, like say a Wayne's World or a MacGruber, where I don't know if you got this ever watching the sketches, but this is a play or parody on the show MacGyver.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So that kind of helps. If you know that, it helps explain some of the comedy there.
Okay, yeah, I have to say, Andrew's one of the guys who has a really extensive knowledge of SNL history, and I do too. There are very few people that I think out there that really kind of know SNL's history as well as you and I. Although, I didn't realize you had skipped over the early 2000s there of SNL.
Yeah, so the thing is, when Will Ferrell left, it was a pretty big hit for me. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people. The show struggled afterwards, and I've actually been back to watch some of those seasons where I was really on the fence and then completely fell off, and definitely figured out that, no, I was right. This kind of sucked, and I was right to jump off. Like, I could not do this every single Saturday. And I was in high school, it was like Saturday nights, I was actually doing something, which is pretty rare for me. So I missed out on pretty much all of Will Forte. He joined just as I was stopping watching, and for some reason, out the gate, I did not like him. Because I thought he was just a bad Will Ferrell replacement, even being another Will F, and then eventually getting the Bush character as well. And he always starred in these very bizarre sketches, like The Falconer. And I was like, this guy's just a lousy replacement for Will Ferrell, and the rest of the show sucks right now. And so I stopped watching until I eventually slowly but surely got interested in the show again. And when I went back to really watch everything I missed, I realized, oh, shit, Will Forte is amazing. He's one of the best cast members ever, and I'm an idiot, and I've missed so many great things, MacGruber included within that. So
I'm glad you said that before I had to, so congratulations.
What's that?
Well, you were saying I was an idiot for not appreciating Will Forte. I'm glad that you bring this topic, before I had to mention the elephant in the room.
Yeah. No, I know the folly of my ways now. Were we ever so young to dislike Will Forte? No, he's amazing, and sadly I haven't really kept up with what he's done post SNL. I really wanted to watch Last Man on Earth and just never got around to it because I don't really have television these days. Even just terrestrial network television like Fox. So I pretty much missed out on it, but it looked amazing, and I heard it was great. So it's a shame it got canceled before its time. Never got to wrap up its own story.
I generally don't watch too much episodic TV just because I don't have the attention span for it. So I've seen a couple episodes of it. It wasn't really my thing, but I will always support Will Forte just because I think he's amazing.
Yeah.
And I will give people my history that'll kind of dovetail with yours a little here. That I've said before, I have not missed an episode of SNL live since like 1985. I have one of the longest Cal Ripken-like streaks alive. And that whole era, 2001 through about 2008, I could not hate an era of SNL more than I hate that era. And it's funny because that's like one of the most beloved and acclaimed eras ever. Like, everyone liked it. I could not stand it. And, like, to me, Will Forte was, like, the one saving grace that made that watchable. And I know what a controversial opinion that is. But, yeah, like, that whole era, I would just sit there and, like, none of this is interesting to me. But every so often, they'll throw some bizarre Will Forte experiment out there. And I'll have no idea how this made it onto the air.
Right.
But as a comedy writer, I'll appreciate that someone fought for that.
I mean, I'm kind of with you. I'm a little bit of the opinion that era is a little bit overrated, but going back and watching a bit of it, and just, like I said, on our show, we just bounce around. At this point, we're about to cover the Betty White episode from season 35, or it has already happened, but we went back to season 35, which I feel is one of the worst seasons the show has ever had because it was so super lazy and just repetitive, and Kristen Wiig was just running roughshod over every single sketch, and you jump back into just one episode and you go, oh, well, this is actually pretty funny. Like, not having been inundated with, your millionth Lawrence Welk show sketch. If you haven't seen it in a couple years and you just dip into one, you go, oh, yeah, this is pretty funny. Yeah, it is a weird back and forth. If you watch season 35, which is, I think, when they were producing this movie and releasing it, it was kind of a miserable season. Actually, Ryan Felipe hosted during that season, and it's one of my most hated episodes because it is indicative of that entire season where to my memory, it was all repeated sketches.
Well, okay. I never know SNL seasons by their season number. What year is that? What year is season 35?
I think it's 2009, 2010.
Okay, yeah. It's the exact era that I really didn't like. Okay, I get it. I remember that Felipe episode just being terrible. So we agree on one thing. I'm very proud of that. But yeah, just this weird era where again, the critics loved it and the audience seemed to love it, and it was just all repeated recurring characters, and I could not stand it. It felt so lazy to me. But every so often you'd have Will Forte coming in there and just completely dismantling what comedy should be. And then on top of that, you had, I'm probably not saying anything you disagree with here, the digital shorts, the Lonely Island guys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. See, to me, that was the saving grace of that era. You had Will Forte and the Lonely Island stuff really elevating and making that era seem better than it actually was. And that's my argument for MacGruber here. This is the best of both of those worlds there, because a lot of people may not know that it was directed and co-written by Jorma. I always don't know how to pronounce that.
Jorma.
How do you say his last name? I'm terrible with names.
I think on the commentary, I had to rewind it because he said it so fast. I think it's Taccone. I think you're supposed to. I don't know if he's Italian or what. I mean, it's such a strange name, but it did seem like a Taccone, and I was like, okay.
Here's the great part. I'm Italian, and I cannot pronounce Italian names. so Jorma Taccone. Yeah, so he wrote this movie, and he's one of the Lonely Island guys. Will Forte starred in it. There were no expectations for it whatsoever. Nobody thought a MacGruber movie would be a hit, and it really wasn't. It was kind of a flop. But it was really interesting because it was kind of produced under, like, without the gaze of the studio. Like, the studio wasn't really on top of them, telling them what they had to do. And they made the most bizarre, weird, non-sequitur, very, very heavily R-rated action movie, and it's not what you would expect out of an SNL movie. And that's why, like I said, I saw this, and instantly I'm like, this is a cult classic. This is going to be remembered one day as a very funny comedy. In fact, I would even go so far as to say it's one of the only really funny movies I can think of after about 2000.
Yeah, that's another thing that really hits me while watching this is just the fact that, hey, it's a comedy movie. What happened to those? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, this is sort of, I guess, right on the edge of, like, those Judd Apatow, Paul Feig, improv-heavy comedies where it's just like, well, we wrote a scene and everybody who's funny on the day will just get there and they'll riff the punchlines and we'll probably throw them all in on the edit because they're all kind of mediocre anyway, and so we'll just have a whole bunch of mediocre punchlines to make up for the fact that we didn't actually write one big punchline. So beyond, actually, speaking of the Lonely Island guys, beyond Pop Star, Never Stop Stopping, this is very much a blast from the past of like, oh, hey, a comedy movie where they wrote all the gags in the script and then went and shot the film as written. Holy crap, they wrote jokes.
I'm very happy you mentioned Pop Star because that's another one I wanted to bring up. That it's funny we keep calling these modern comedy movies. These are like almost 10 years old, some of them, so they're not even really modern anymore. But
well, Pop Star's about, what, 3-4 years old, something like that.
But yeah, those are three that I would say, like, there are very few comedies in the 2010s and late 2000s that make me laugh. This one, MacGruber, is one of them. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, another one that really makes me laugh. And then you got the other ones you mentioned, Pop Star and Hot Rod. Now, Hot Rod, I'm right on the fence if I want to do a Staff Picks episode on that movie because I love the idea of it and I love a lot of the jokes, but I feel it really kind of falls apart at the end. So I'm not 100% as sold on that one as I am on MacGruber.
No, when I first bought MacGruber to watch when we first discussed doing this episode, I bought Hot Rod alongside of it, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. It's got one really great gag of him falling down the mountain for an extended period of time, but the rest of it's kind of forgettable. Sorry to say that, but it's okay. It's more in line of what you think a regular SNL movie would kind of be.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. We're spending a lot of time on the preamble, but I think this is important for people because, like, Andrew and I live in this SNL world. You guys might not live in the SNL world like we do.
It's horrifying here.
Terrible. It's a safe space. We're safe here, Andrew.
No.
So let's talk about the history of SNL movies.
Okay.
Even though it might be kind of brutal.
Yeah, a little bit. It starts off strong.
Okay, what's the first one? The Blues Brothers in like 1983 or 2?
I think just 1980, which if you're going to have bookends for this whole SNL universe, it's kind of fun to have Blues Brothers, which is an action comedy musical, and MacGruber, which is also an action comedy, serving as sort of bookends.
Yeah, they're basically the same movie.
I just kind of realized that myself. But yeah, I was like, hey, that's actually kind of nice. A little bit of cyclical nature there. But I don't think that's a full-on SNL production. I'm not 100% sure if even Lorne produced that.
I've never counted the Blues Brothers as an SNL movie. It's too much of a standalone.
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit off the grid. And so is the second, because I think the first sort of official one is Tom Schiller's movie Nothing Lasts Forever.
Oh, wow.
I believe that is the first Lorne Michaels produced SNL movie, and it was instantly lost because it's a Tom Schiller film, and they made it and went, who is going to watch this?
Well, I would argue that's pretty much the thought process behind a lot of these SNL movies.
That's true.
I'll skip forward ahead for people who like the Blues Brothers is really kind of the beginning, but that's not the era most people think of.
I want to talk Tom Schiller?
No, we're not really. This is not going to be a Tom Schiller heavy episode, Andrew. Mm-hmm. But the era that most people would know is the 80s, 90s, 2000s. You got like Stewart Saves His Family. You got Superstar. You got the Night at the Roxbury.
Right.
And I would just, I'm going to be kind of blunt here. I think they're all crap. So.
Well, I mean, that's taking the Wayne's World films off the table.
Exactly. Wayne's World's the one. A lot of people don't know what a big deal Wayne's World was. That wasn't just an SNL movie. That was like the number one movie in the country. That's like the defining movie of that year.
Yeah. And I guess some people have defended Coneheads. I haven't seen it since I was 8 years old or whatever, but I know that there are people coming out of the woodwork to say that one is not as bad as maybe you would think. I don't know.
To quote the great Nick Cage, that's high praise.
But yeah, I mean, we've covered Roxbury and Superstar on the show. And yeah, they're miserable. They're fucking miserable. Terrible. Especially Roxbury is so bad. It's so bad that Chaz Palminteri took his name off the film. We realized that afterwards. It's like, who is this character? Why can we not find him in the cast list? Oh yeah, it's Chaz Palminteri, and he took his name off of it because it sucked.
Okay, yeah, so that's the long sordid history of SNL movies. If you didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s, you would know this, that was the synonymous with a crappy movie. That's just what it was. It was a cheaply produced piece of crap that was really watered down PG for kids, just a recurring character going out and spouting catchphrases.
A character that's already dead, usually. Already been just milked to death for the show. And now, a year later, you get the movie. And it's like, no! Why?
So that's the history of SNL movies. That other than Wayne's World, most of them were just kind of crap.
Yeah, the history is why.
Yes, exactly. And now you got MacGruber, which, again, a movie nobody expected anything from. Nobody was clamoring for a MacGruber movie. It wasn't like the biggest character. It wasn't the big catchphrase character. But for some reason, it was produced, it came out, and it was a huge flop. Absolutely flop. Yeah. But it's so funny. And it's so much better than you think. There's 9 or 10 legit out loud laughs in this movie that come out of nowhere. Some of the funniest scenes I can think of in the 2000s.
And this movie also came out the same year as another of my favorite comedies of the last decade or so, which also kind of shares a aesthetic with MacGruber, which is Black Dynamite, which was... sort of paying homage to blaxploitation films, but also making it a ridiculous comedy. MacGruber, as we've said, actually plays itself pretty straight as a love letter to 80s, 90s action films, while also being a ridiculous comedy. And, so I also just noticed that. I was like, this kind of reminds me of Black Dynamite. I'm they came out the same year.
Okay, before we delve into the plot of MacGruber, and I'm going into this assuming most people have not seen this movie, so we're going to kind of explain the gags and stuff. But there's 3 things I wanted to bring up before we get into it. The first is this movie has an R rating, and that's why what separates it from other SNL comedies. And it's not like a benign R rating.
No.
This is an NC-17 hard R rating.
Yeah, listening to the commentary, they definitely were worried that it was going to go into NC-17 territory.
And you would not expect that from an SNL movie because they were always, again, very benign and kind of marketed towards kids and teenagers. And this one is just not. That's all I can say about it. You would not want to watch this movie with your parents. I'll put it at that.
Oh, God, no. No.
And the other thing I wanted to point out is that, again, a notorious flop. Nobody liked it at the time. If you read some of the reviews of MacGruber, they're just hilarious how angry it made some critics. And there's one sentence here that I just always love. I forget if this was from Roger Ebert or someone else when he says, "What reason is there for this movie to exist?" That's high praise for a comedy right there.
I mean, he's not completely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're not making any great points with this movie. It's just for gags.
Right.
Okay, and then the third thing I wanted to point out again is that SNL movies historically suck, and I don't know you'll get much argument on that, but the argument I would make for people is this is not an SNL movie. Don't think of it as an SNL movie. Think of it as, oh my God, somebody paid Will Forte $30 million to make a movie.
Well, actually, I was looking it up. It only cost $10 million.
What?
And they couldn't even make that back. Yeah, cost $10 million and had a very short turnaround. They had about a month to knock it out. And, still couldn't even make that back.
Yeah, but just for anybody who knows Will Forte's history on SNL, he does the most bizarre sketches, the bizarre turns of phrase. They're always weird. They always go in some weird 90-degree direction. Just one of the most unique acquired tastes, perhaps, would be a good way to phrase him.
Yeah. And, props to Lorne, honestly, to really let one of the weirdest performers the show has ever had, and not even the star of the show at that point, to have his own movie. I mean, there's very little times where I don't have a problem with the way Lorne produces his show for the most part, but this is nice. It's like, yeah, that's kind of what I want to see. Let the freaks let their flags fly.
But again, just the thought process. Somebody gave Will Forte money to make a movie. Like, that should not happen. It just did. So just anybody who loves comedy, anything about comedy, find this movie and watch it because it's so bizarre.
Yeah, and it's super cheap.
Yeah.
If I don't know if it's streaming anywhere. It's an SNL thing, so I don't know if it's streaming. But I bought the Blu-ray for $5. I mean,
that was a good price for it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
All right, so again, I want to clarify this. I usually have pretty sharp listeners, so I don't feel I need to explain every joke. But when Andrew said earlier this is a parody of MacGyver and I expressed shock, I was just joking. I'm well aware this was a MacGyver parody. Yeah, okay, so we'll set this up for people who may not know. MacGyver, very famous old TV show in the 80s about, what's his name, Richard Dean Anderson? He was the guy?
Yep.
And he was a former Marine, former military guy who decided he wanted to, fight crime and do good, but he would not use guns. He was a man of science. He would design other things that could solve his problems, and he would just not use firearms. He couldn't kill people. And that is the parody of this. That is the what we're parodying in this movie, that MacGruber is very much along those lines, except for the fact that, A, he's a sadistic asshole, B, he's a murderer. He loves tearing people's throats out. That's his biggest, he gets off on it. He gets sexual pleasure from ripping people's throats out.
Yeah, he doesn't shoot anybody, but he loves to just murder people in the most gruesome fashion.
Yes, and he's just a dick. And I hate to say that. I know that's your last name. I feel bad.
Oh, it's fine. No.
Impugning the fine Dick family name.
We use it plenty of times. People are dicks, and they don't have to be part of our family.
But that's the thing about MacGruber. He's not likable. There's nothing likable about this character. He's an asshole to every other person in this movie, and yet somehow they made him the hero. And it's just one of these weird anti-comedies that, as the reviewer said, there's no reason for this to exist, but it is, and Anybody who likes comedy, I think, would appreciate this.
Well, and with the sketches, the gag is he always fails, too, because it always ends. The MacGruber sketches would be a three-piece scattered throughout usually the first half of the show, and it'd always be a gag waiting for when the bomb explodes that ends the sketch. So in the universe of the sketches, he's never won. He's never done a good job ever. The bomb always goes off.
Yeah, not only that, but he has died repeatedly. We're going into Chris Elliott territory for people who ever saw the TV show Get a Life. It was famous because Chris Elliott's character would die at the end of almost every episode.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that was what was so amazing about it, that he'd just die and then come back the next episode. So MacGruber has died hundreds of times before this movie. So, okay. Are you ready here, Andrew, to do our best to delve into this movie?
Yeah, I think that's enough preamble.
You ready to pound some cunt?
Oh, boy. So, that is the first note I have, because right off the bat, we meet Val Kilmer as Dieter von Kumpf. And so that's my first note. Is Kumpf funny? Is that really funny?
It's one of those Will Forte things, I think, where it's really not funny. It's a hacky joke. But if you keep coming back to it over and over and over again, eventually it kind of becomes funny.
Right, because they do have the gag of him always making the "let's pound some cunt." So, I mean, it's there for that gag, I guess, especially, particularly, but it's so bizarre. It's a bizarre choice.
That is one of the things that many of the critics, many of the critics at the time pointed out. Your bad guy's name is Kuntz. Like, really?
Yeah.
You're going that stupid with your joke? But yes, we are going to go that stupid with the joke.
And honestly, it's the first joke because the movie opens up in a pretty legit sort of action movie way, where it does kind of take a couple minutes before it even really hits its first big joke, beyond the detail of Val Kilmer's name being Kuntz. It actually does take a couple minutes to really get to our first joke. It really starts off like a legit action film as he's stealing this nuclear warhead.
Yeah, let's explain that to people who haven't seen it. Okay, so there's a terrorist called Dieter von Kuntz, played by fat old Val Kilmer. Fat evil Val Kilmer. And again, I'm a big Val Kilmer fan going way back to Top Secret, so I'm excited to see him in a movie. And he has hijacked a nuclear warhead, the X-5 nuclear warhead, and apparently this guy Kuntz is a very bad man. So when you have a bad man like this, you must send in the ultimate hero to stop him, and this is where we're going to meet MacGruber.
Yes, who is hiding out in Ecuador, I believe.
Yeah, they have a lot of Buddhist temples in Ecuador.
Yeah.
Although I should point out, for people who know the SNL sketch, they have MacGruber's theme song. MacGruber, making life-saving something out of household inventions. MacGruber! It's very recognizable theme. But they add a couple parts to it in the movie, which I appreciated, to the theme song.
Yeah.
The sexy sax man, which I love.
And also, they made a fucking movie, MacGruber!
There are a lot of F words in this movie, so get ready for it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so MacGruber he's like a recluse. He used to be a war hero, and now he's retreated to this monastery in Ecuador. And he's been pretending he's dead. He is hiding out, and only this Colonel, I forget his name, Powers Booth, has to come find him.
Yeah, Jim Faith, played by Powers Booth. So already we've gotten Val Kilmer and Powers Booth, both which are just giant slabs of head. Just big, meaty head people.
I'd never thought of them that way, but that is very accurate. So Powers Booth is like Easter Island, basically.
Basically, yes.
Okay, and Powers Booth and his little sidekick Ryan Phillippe come down, and they track down MacGruber. And this is where we learn this MacGruber guy is like a legend, an American legend. He's like, what do they say, a former Navy SEAL, former Army Ranger, Green Beret.
Yeah, they list off everything, like 10 tours of this, 7 tours of this, 7 Purple Hearts.
16 Purple Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Among his other awards.
Right.
Yeah, so they say basically this guy, Von Kuntz, has stolen a nuclear warhead. We need you to come. And MacGruber has given up this life. And we will find out in a little bit why. He's like, that's not my problem. I don't need to stop this guy. And they tell him, it's Kuntz. Like, Kuntz. This is the guy who like ruined your life. This is why you're in the monastery. And this is where we get is this the amazing flashback of the wedding? Why?
First they leave and he has the flashback, and that's when he rolls up. It's like, I'm in. But first he needs to sort of tell them that, no, I'm done with this life. Everything I love is in this town, as he's walking with a big group of Ecuadorian kids who just steal his necklace and run off. It's like, they'll return that.
Did you put the subtitles on for that scene? It's really funny.
I did not know.
The little kids, MacGruber's with these little kids in Ecuador, and he gives them a necklace and they run off or something.
Well, they steal it. Yeah, he's like, everything I love is in this town, and the kids just steal his property and run off.
If you turn on the subtitles, they say something like "Blow me, MacGruber" or something like that.
Oh, yeah. There is subtitles just hard baked into it, because then you also have that joke coming back later on in the film where he's like, "That's loco, man," and the subtitles pop up after being gone for like an hour. It's like, that's crazy, man.
And we find out right here at the start of the movie why MacGruber has been in isolation and why he has retired and why he doesn't fight crime. I will give you the honor. Walk people through why he has given up the world of MacGrubering.
Well, we flash back to MacGruber about to marry his fiancée, Casey Fitzpatrick, who was played by the wonderful Maya Rudolph. And so Kunth rolls up on the wedding. He's installed a bomb inside the Bible. So when they finally get to that last page, you see the bomb in the Bible, and Kunth in the background hits the button, blam, blows up Maya Rudolph. And that's
the first of many horrible things that'll be done to Maya Rudolph in this movie.
That is true. Maya comes in just to get reamed, basically, multiple times.
Yeah, we're going to see this wedding scene over and over in the movie, and every time we see it, it gets more graphic and progressively worse. Like, there's a scene later in the movie where Kristen Wiig is at the wedding, and we hear the explosion, and she is immediately splattered by the blood of her best friend, Maya Rudolph.
Right.
Yeah, so this is MacGruber. He's still haunted that this guy, Dieter von Kunth, has blown up his wife and killed his wife and ruined all his dreams. So MacGruber, his need for revenge finally gets him to come out of retirement, and he goes to the Pentagon and says, "I'm in. Let's go pound some Kunth." And they explain the whole thing. This guy, Dieter, has stolen these nuclear codes. He's got a missile. He's going to do some terrorist act. You got to stop him. And this is where MacGruber just starts being a dick to everybody right off the bat. Right from the start, he is an asshole to everybody in the Pentagon.
Well, yeah, especially Dixon Piper, who was played by that's Ryan Felipe's character, just automatically hates that dude right off the bat. I think at the end of the scene, just bashes him in the head, just headbutts him.
There's one little line that I like especially here. It's just such a little Will Forte way of saying a line where the colonel's like, MacGruber, it'd be really bad if the terrorist gets the nuclear launch codes. And MacGruber's like, "Oh, really? I thought it'd be okay if he got the codes."
All right. Yeah, before you said that, I thought it would have been okay.
Yeah, and so what is he? He tells Ryan Phillippe, he's like, "Yeah, you little soldier, like you're one of these goody two-shoe soldiers. You think your shit doesn't stink? Well, guess what? Your shit does stink. It smells like shit."
Right.
So we learn that the von Kunth has put together a dream team of all these killers and terrorists and stuff, and MacGruber's like, "Well, you know what? I can play that game too. I'll put together my own dream team." And this is where we get the first of many montages in this movie.
Yes. So we establish him rolling out in his car to a Black Keys song that immediately switches to Toto's Rosanna after he rolls out, which establishes that MacGruber likes the cheesiest, 70s middle-of-the-road jams.
Yeah, just to clarify for people who have not seen this movie before, there's a couple great running jokes. One of them involves MacGruber and his car stereo, which will never not make me laugh. He's forever getting in and out of his car, and he has to have a removable stereo with him at all times because he doesn't want it stolen. So, he's going into these dangerous terrorist missions, and he's always carrying his little removable stereo. It's so stupid, but so funny because it never lets up the whole movie.
Yeah, which is so strange because, I grew up in a time where you'd basically, if you wanted to do that, you would just take the faceplate off of your stereo in your car. But this whole idea of removing the whole mechanism each time.
Yeah, it's like he's got a little women's purse with him at all times, his little stereo.
Right, and it's just a stereo.
And the other thing is what Andrew said is that they'll play these hard rock soundtracks when MacGruber is pulling out into action, and then they'll immediately cut to the actual song that's on his radio, and it's always the wimpiest little 80s ballad you can think of, repeatedly through the whole movie. And that's got to be Yorma Tacoma. I mean, that feels like a Lonely Island gag right there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think there's some Michael Bolton and stuff in there that certainly had to be his choice.
Yeah. Okay, so MacGruber is going to go recruit his dream team of terrorist killers, and I'm going to just go through it rather quickly. But the first guy is the one that I want to focus on, and it's a montage of like any action movie you've ever seen. Like they play this completely straight. It's really like a real action movie here, where he's assembling his dream team. And Frank the Boxer, he's the one that I want to focus on here.
Oh yes, Chris Jericho.
Oh, that's Chris. I didn't realize that was Chris Jericho.
Yes, that. So all of these people are wrestlers.
Well, that helps the macho factor. We have the actual pro wrestlers here that MacGruber's going to recruit.
Yep.
And he goes to this guy, Frank the Boxer, played by Chris Jericho, and just a wonderful little exchange of phrases here. I had to write it down exactly because it's such a Will Forte type thing. Where Chris Jericho's like, "You're looking pretty good, MacGruber." And MacGruber's like, "Well, every day's a workout when you're carrying around a 20-pound python in your jeans." And Jericho's like, "Yeah,
you and your dick comments."
You and your dick comments. And you think that would be the end of the scene, but because it's a Will Forte one, it's going to keep going. He's like, "You and your dick comments," and MacGruber's like, "It's fun to say them." And Jericho's like,
"Fun to hear
it's
them."
Fun to hear them, yeah. That's why I say them. That's why I listen.
Which I guess commentary reveals that I don't know how much of it was, but I think a little bit of that was improv. He said that Jericho was actually taking some improv training at the Groundlings.
Wow.
So maybe I think some of that actually might have been done within that scene, or at least on the day of probably adding the "it's fun to say them, it's fun to hear them" comments.
Yeah, that is just fantastic. I mean, anybody who has an ear for comedy writing just has to appreciate that scene and that dialogue because it just keeps going beyond the part where you think the joke ends, and they just keep going with it. All right, so MacGruber recruits his entire team. There's Tut Beamer, a big black construction worker. I'm not going to say they're all named. They're all big pro wrestlers, and they're all big macho guys.
Yeah, you got the Big Show, Kane, the Great Khali. Yeah, they're all WWE guys.
And this is where we meet the possible female member of the team, Vicky St. Elmo, played by, of course,
Kristen Wiig.
Kristen Wiig, who is, I have to say, I'm not always the biggest fan of Kristen Wiig, but I love her in this movie. I think she's so good when she's toned down like this.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. Is I love when Kristen is underplayed rather than overplayed, and yeah, she always kills it in these sketches. Her very spunky, like "Let's go, MacGruber," is always so much fun. And, yeah, so this is where we also establish the flashback of she was best friends with Maya Rudolph and at the wedding and coated in her own friend's blood after the explosion, and she just doesn't want to join the team. You know, she's moved on to her terrible music career.
Great shot here. Great acting performance by Kristen Wiig when they literally just throw a gallon of blood in her face during the explosion scene. You got to give a shout out to the pro who can play that scene.
Right.
Okay, here's another throwaway joke. Just a lot of little throwaway jokes and moments that legitimately get laughs out of me because they come out of nowhere. Where he's trying to get Kristen Wiig to join the team, and he's like, "Well, if you want to join later, you know where to find me." And he hands her a piece of paper. And you think it's a phone number.
Right.
She opens up the paper, and it says, "I'm at the Pentagon," in like big retard script.
I know. I think he spells it Pentagon.
Yeah, he misspells Pentagon. It looks like a 2-year-old wrote it.
Right.
It's such a killer gag, and they don't linger on it. You just have to. It's real quick.
Right.
So now we go to one of the most famous scenes in the movie where MacGruber has gathered his whole team that he's going to go take on Von Kumpf, and he's gathered them all in a van. It's just like a Schwarzenegger movie of muscle and brawn and testosterone. They're all together in one van, and they have all the weapons, and they're getting ready to fly off to whatever God knows what country Von Kumpf is in. And Andrew, what happens to these poor souls?
Well, apparently there's been some homemade C4 in the van, and while we're off talking to Powers Booth and Ryan Felipe, kablam, the entire van goes up with everybody in it.
Yeah, you think this is going to be a big action movie, but it's not, because in the first 10 minutes, all of MacGruber's team gets murdered because he accidentally loads the van with explosives. And you don't see this joke coming. He's talking in the foreground, and all of a sudden the van with his entire team gets blown up right behind him.
I would say, actually, this is the one gag in the movie that doesn't fully work for me, because I think I did kind of see this one coming, especially because you continually see the van in the background, and we're talking up those people so much that it's like, yeah, that van's going up, no doubt. My favorite part of this, though, he's fighting with Ryan Felipe again, and Ryan's up in his face about having busted his nose earlier, and we get the line of MacGruber saying to him, "I bet you wish your face was a penis so we could fuck butts."
Wait, you must be watching the unrated version. That's a different line.
Oh, is it? Okay, because
there's two lines.
The commentary is only on the theatrical version, but I couldn't really hear it because of the commentary. But just watching it, I didn't see anything really edited out. So
Okay, I'll give you the theatrical version here. What happens is, Philippi has the broken nose from when MacGruber has headbutted him, and MacGruber goes, "How's your nose, rookie?" And Philippi's like, "Fine, I banged it into a big vagina." And then
yeah.
And then MacGruber goes, "I bet you wish your nose was a dick so you could ram it into my face vagina."
Okay, yeah. So we could, So fuck butts was the one that was added into the unrated version, which was so ludicrous.
Yeah, just flip a coin, which version you prefer there.
Right.
I will say that my favorite part of the scene, like I agree with you. I think they play off the gag that the van is going to explode too early. But I love every single member of MacGruber's team has died in this van explosion that he himself loaded with C4. Right. And then MacGruber, I love when Will Forte is tormented and he starts screaming. He's like,
oh, he's one of the best screamers.
He runs over to the van and there's clearly nobody alive, but he's going, "Tug, you guys okay?
You guys."
No. Tug! You guys okay? Oh, somebody's got to be in there. Oh, call 911! Call 911!
And the scene ends with him just screaming at the sky, which I believe is like the fourth scene already in the film that ends with MacGruber screaming.
Yes. We've established a pattern here.
Yes.
He will fail and then scream. All right, so with all his team gone, basically MacGruber's removed from the case, and it's really just him and Ryan Philippi at this point, and Philippi wants nothing to do with him because MacGruber's been a dick to him the whole time. And this is where he has to get Philippi back on board and get him to join the team. Probably the less said about this one, the better, but I'll let you imply some of it if you'd like.
Well, this is the "I'll suck your dick" monologue?
Yeah, this is one of the NC-17 scenes, I would say.
Oh, is this not in the theatrical? I think it was.
It is. No, it is, but this is one of those hard R scenes that you wouldn't want to sit there and watch with your mom.
Right, because, he's just begging him on the floor to join his team, and he's like, "Just show me what the fuck. Anything in the room, just show me what the fuck." And my favorite part before all this is he's talking to Powers Booth at the beginning, and he's taking MacGruber off the case, but they're talking about the funeral, and he's like, "You really did not need to curse that much during your eulogy." And he's like, "Whatever." And he's like, "There were kids there." He's like, "They laughed."
Yes. MacGruber has an F-word problem, as we learn.
Right.
All right, yeah, so MacGruber basically begs Philippi to join his team. Is basically, "I will do mouth stuff with you. You can do mouth stuff with me, whatever you want to do. I'll F anything in this room. Point to anything in this room, I'll have sex with it." And then, Will Forte will just keep these jokes going. Then the general walks in, and Forte is pantsless, preparing to have sex with anything in the room. And Will Forte, no stranger to showing his butt, I will say.
No, we see a lot of Will Forte in this movie.
So Felipe basically says, "Okay, fine, I'll join you to stop MacGruber from embarrassing himself and having sex with the whiteout bottle." And so this is the team. We have Philippi and we have MacGruber, and somehow then Vicky comes in and joins. Kristen Wiig decides. So now we have the official team, the 3-man team.
Right. And so I guess the first thing we need to do is go down to Gump's nightclub and do some intel research.
Yeah, okay. Another fantastic running joke in this movie. So many little sight gags and running jokes. This is the license plate gag.
Yes.
All right, I'll give you the honor.
Oh, so I mean, they're right outside of the nightclub, just chilling in his car at the light or whatever, and a dude just rolls past, like, nice car, and he just looks at the license plate and just starts repeating it over, like KRBR2132KRB, and just so you just set up the gag. It very nicely just kind of underplays itself. You just get him very intently looking at it and just repeating it to himself. And then you kind of lose it for a while until it comes back. But it's a very nice setup here where they definitely point it out to you and then give you just enough repetition to kind of remember it and then make you forget it until it comes back.
Yeah, it will pop up several times through this movie that MacGruber is so driven by rage that he remembers this guy's license plate and vows revenge. You know,
possibly more than anything else in the movie. He's more focused on this.
On top of the nuclear situation, he hates this guy even more. And all because the guy said nice car when he saw MacGruber's Miata.
Right.
So anyway, he goes into the club and he just announces his presence. He's like, I'm MacGruber. I'm going to come get you, cunt.
Just immediately blows his cover.
Yeah, they're like, he thought you were dead, MacGruber. You just ruined your entire advantage. And so now we need to come up with a backup plan. And this is a good 20-minute stretch of the movie, one of my favorite parts of the movie, where their plan is they're going to dress Vicky up as MacGruber, so when they try to kill MacGruber, he'll be safe. And Vicky's like, what? Why would you dress me up and have them try to kill me? And MacGruber's like, well, because it's not me. She's like, no, that's terrible. But he's very fully committed to this plan.
I also love that he becomes very attracted to Vicky in the MacGruber outfit. It's like, oh, you're looking really nice here.
Yeah, so Kristen Wiig underplaying everything. We have a big stretch of movie here where she dresses up as MacGruber and goes into a bar and tries to get herself shot by a terrorist. And that doesn't work because the terrorist comes and attacks MacGruber in the van, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, then when they kill the terrorist, what is his name? Haas Bender?
Yes, I believe so.
Then they dress Vicky up as Haas instead. They're like, we'll send you into the terrorist night, the den of all the terrorists. And she's like, but they'll shoot me. And he'll be like, no, they'll be so angry you're not Haas that they won't know what to do. She's like, no.
They won't even know what to do.
So poor Kristen Wiig, always being shoved into danger, and she's so funny at underplaying this character, like, but no. And
also, for some reason, Ryan Felipe is now dressed as MacGruber.
Yes, that's the other joke I forgot about.
For no reason.
So, Kristen Wiig, you're dressed as the terrorist, Felipe's dressed as me, and I'll be over here while they kill you two.
Right, and so there's supposed to be some sort of change of nuclear codes or whatever happening here. Of course, MacGruber just immediately announces himself. The cover is immediately blown by the celery in the butt trick.
Oh, there's some fun stuff in this scene. The celery is the one that really got all the attention, and I will explain that in a second if you haven't seen it. But the tennis ball is the one that will make me laugh every single goddamn time I watch this movie.
I did make a note of that as well, because it is the one sort of MacGyver-esque moment is during this like crazy gun battle going on. You see him he's messing around in a tiny little bucket, and as everybody is rolling away, the whole action scene is over. He just throws the tennis ball and it just goes poof, just a little bit of smoke.
All right, well, the celery one is the one that everyone tends to remember. As the gun battle is going on between MacGruber's buddy, MacGruber will not shoot a gun, so his buddy has to do all the heavy lifting. Philip has to do all the shooting. MacGruber decides he will distract the bad guys by basically stripping down to nothing and wedging a stick of celery up his butt. And he walks out and does a little dance with the celery coming out of his butt. Again,
just does a little duck walk.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of Will Forte in this movie. It's the most bizarre thing. And the funny thing is it works.
Right.
Bad guys are so distracted that Ryan Phillippe shoots them all.
Right.
And then the tennis ball. That's such a master class in how comedy equals timing. Watch this scene. I'm sure they have it on YouTube. Just watch MacGruber throws the tennis ball, and watch how long the director, Jorma, holds on the scene before the tennis ball fails to explode. And MacGruber just goes, damn it!
Well, and the whole scene ends with them getting a call from Kuntz on the cell phone. So, all right, keep him on the line. for 20 seconds so we can triangulate his position. And MacGruber immediately picks up, like, listen here, you motherfucker, I'm coming for you. Just like he hangs up within 3 seconds.
Yeah, MacGruber's supposed to keep him on the line for 20. He immediately insults him, Kuntz hangs up, and they're like, MacGruber, it had to be 20 seconds. He's like, that was 20? And they're like, no, that was 3. Okay, so we're about halfway through the movie, and everything has failed. MacGruber, the bad guys have got the nuclear codes, they've got the bomb, everything's going bad, and they find out that there's going to be a party at Kunth's house.
Yeah, some sort of charity event, I believe it is.
Okay, and so MacGruber and Vicky and Felipe are going to go crash the party, and MacGruber has orders, like, you can only stake out outside the party. Do not go in, do not make a scene out of yourself. And knowing MacGruber, he immediately makes a scene out of himself, dressing in the flashiest white tuxedo, and then crashing the party, while, I might add, still holding his car stereo.
Yes. And meanwhile, Ryan Felipe is sort of monitoring all this from a truck and notices MacGruber's notebook for the whole case, which he pops open. First page, notes. Or clues, rather. Nothing. After that, KRBR213. It's the license plate repeated 1 billion times, like the Shining-esque, all work and no play type of scenario. And he just flips through these endless pages of the writing of this license plate until he finally gets to a crudely drawn picture of MacGruber hanging from a branch and pooping on the guy and his car, and he just tosses the notebook away in disgust.
That's the part that, again, these Will Forte things where you start a joke and you keep going and it stops being funny and then it becomes funny again because he keeps going with it.
Right.
When they're flipping through the notebook, just all the references to this license plate, that's all MacGruber cares about is the guy who yelled at him in Vegas. And you just keep going and going and going. It's all that's in the notebook. And the very last page is MacGruber taking a shit onto the guy.
Yup.
All right. I have to point out one of the most awkward exchanges of dialogue I've ever seen in a comedy here between MacGruber and Von Kunth's daughter.
Oh, right.
All right. I will set this one up for people because I am, again, the comedy writer in me loves stuff like this where MacGruber goes into the party and Von Kunth is there and there's a attractive-looking woman, younger woman next to him. And so MacGruber goes to the girl and he says, Von Kunth is an a-hole. Hope you enjoy being date raped tonight. And Von Kunth is like, that's my daughter. And MacGruber just gets this look on his face. He's like, he killed my wife? I don't know.
The face he puts on it is like, oh, it's so good. It's mostly sold on MacGruber's reaction of like, oh boy. Really fucked that up. Okay,
so MacGruber is thrown out of the party, and they smash his beloved car stereo, and he's more angry about that than anything, that they've ruined his stereo. They owe him a Blaupunkt.
Yes. And the whole time, he's just whining to Kristen Wiig, who's actually still in the party and actually doing her damn job, and he's just whining about how bummed he is that they broke his stereo.
Okay. Here we go. We're about to set up the signature MacGruber scene, the sex scene. Although you have to do this very carefully, because I want to do this justice, Andrew.
Oh, I mean, well, first we need to go back and have Powers Booth take him off the case.
Yeah, MacGruber gets fired. There, I'll save you the trouble.
Yeah, and we get he goes to the door, and then he turns back, and he's like, I'll suck your fucking dick. He's like, no, thank you. He's like,
damn it. That usually works.
Right. But so everybody's basically off the case and they're enjoying some time off, just having a couple beers in some random backyard. I do love the flirtatious conversation as Kristen Wiig goes off to the bathroom. And he's like, what is it, a number 1 or a number 2? And she's like, I'm not going to tell you. He's like, it's a number 2. And they both like giggle like idiots and she kind of like struts off. Oh, so ridiculous.
All right, so here we go. We're going to set this up that everyone's been removed from the case, and they're very sad, and they're all just kind of sitting around, and Felipe's like, why don't you make a move on Vicky? You know, she obviously likes you. You obviously like her. And he's like, oh, no, I could never do that. I promised Maya Rudolph, my wife, who was blown up. I promised her I would never touch another woman. And so we get in this long discussion. Why did he kill your wife anyway, MacGruber? And MacGruber's like, I don't know. It's a mystery why. He had some grudge against me. And this is where we go into the story of perhaps why.
This monologue is outrageous.
So we find out the mystery of why Von Kanth hates MacGruber is that apparently Casey, MacGruber, and Von Kanth all went to college together. So we all see them sitting around in a dorm room, like eating pizza and playing guitars. And apparently Von Kanth was engaged to Casey. That was his girlfriend.
Right.
And MacGruber's like, but you know, I took her, I banged her, I stole her away from Von Kanth. And like, what did he say? His actual words here. I banged her and I mowed her box.
She was the first person I was comfortable enough to eat out my butt.
And so they cheated on Von Kanth, and then she's like, well, she was pregnant with Von Kanth's child. I had her terminate the baby.
So obviously I had her terminate.
I killed his kid. And he's like, I don't know why he's mad at me, though.
So again, like, we're just rolling into the third act of this film, and we realize that MacGruber is the true villain here.
Yeah, he's the villain. I love here. MacGruber tells the most horrible story of all these horrible things. He took this guy's girlfriend, had his baby terminated, and then Philippe's like, wow, that's fucked up. And MacGruber's like, thanks.
Yeah.
He thinks he's empathizing with him.
Oh, my God. And so it's right after that they realize, you know, they're being watched, and so they get fired upon by one of the henchmen who comes to bust up their little party there. MacGruber totally using Ryan Felipe as a human shield, even just turning him over at one point to just utilize more.
This is great.
Like the front half of him was too shot up, so he turns him around. Him and Kristen Wiig jump into the car, and they kind of lay him in the back, so he continues to act as a shield.
Yeah. Phillippe takes about 500 bullets in this scene. The sniper's trying to kill him, and MacGruber is moving Phillippe in different areas, so he'll absorb more bullets that he'll be protected. So they all drive off, and Phillippe comes out to him to life. He's like, oh, I had a bulletproof vest on. He's like, wow, that was so genius of you, MacGruber, for using me as a shield. How did you know I had a bulletproof vest on? And MacGruber's like, you're wearing a bulletproof vest? Awesome. So Phillippe's a little angry that perhaps his best friend has used him as a shield, and he leaves. He quits. He walks off.
Right. But we do figure out that MacGruber has been shot in his leg. And so we go to Vicky's house, Kristen Wiig, her house, to pull out the bullet.
Which is conveniently located right next to his dick.
Right, the bullet. And so this starts off the funniest 5 to 10 minutes of this film is so great. So first we got the hole right next to MacGruber's crotch, and you know, it's like, all right, I'm gonna get that out. And you almost assume she's gonna suck it out or something. No, she just graphically starts just putting these pliers in there and just moving it around. The most graphic close-up of just jamming pliers into this bullet wound as they're having this very tender conversation.
That's an odd way to start a sex scene, by the way.
Right? And that he's gotten an erection because of it.
Yeah, this is a very roundabout way to having not only one but two of the funniest sex scenes you are ever going to see in a movie, and this is why when I recommend this to people, when I say, even if you don't care about anything else in this movie, watch these sex scenes, and then imagine that some horrified kid had to sit there and watch that with their parents one time.
Oh my God, yeah. So, and before we get into the first sex scene, though, as it's kind of wrapping up and they're starting to kiss, Kristen points to the gun wound, is like, should I close this up? And he's like, no, I love holes.
Yes, leave it open. I like holes.
Jesus Christ.
And what's funny is that's only the first one. Here's the second one. He starts to kiss her, and she's like, I'm a virgin. And he's like, not for long.
Right. And so you get the sex scene kind of shot like a 80s action sex scene. Who wants to take a crack at it?
I will do my best, but I cannot actually say everything MacGruber says in the scene because I have a teenage son in the other room and he might hear me screaming this stuff. So, yeah, what's happened is this a master class in film editing right here. What Jorma Taccone does here, when just the jump cut. Words cannot describe this jump cut of this most romantic love scene ever. Hi there, this is Mario. I'm recording this 6 years after I recorded this episode on MacGruber. Just to let you know that when I was moving these episodes over to YouTube, they did not like this particular part of this episode where I played the Mr. Mr. theme song, Broken Wings, and I talked about MacGruber pounding away at his wife, and they didn't like that song, and I couldn't edit it out because it was underneath the audio. So let's just say I was talking about how romantic the scene is and what an amazingly 80s cheesy love scene it is between two people making love, and now we'll cut to the jump cut. Okay, so just pretend that you heard me talk about this. Thank you. All the music stops, all the romance stops. It's just Will Forte pounding away on Kristen Wiig and going, and it goes on. It doesn't stop. It's the most awkward scene ever, and he's making these noises that are not human. He sounds like an accordion.
I love. He's like, I'm gonna fill you up, and she's like, I'm gonna fill you up, and he's like, just let me do the talking.
I'm to do
Oh, man. So that's ridiculous enough in its own. But after this, he feels such shame that he has to go to the grave of his long dead wife to, apologize for what he's done. And so the ghost of Maya Rudolph shows up. And so then he just fucks her on her tombstone. And it's just the same scene over again.
Yeah.
Again, I cannot imagine people who saw this in the theater and were unprepared for that scene. Because the first one is bad enough. I mean, you watch this on YouTube. It's so awkward, and it just goes on as he's just pounding at her. I mean, he's like a jackhammer, making the weirdest noises, and then we cut to this tender scene at the grave right after with Maya Rudolph, and her ghost comes out. She's like, it's okay, be with Vicky, I don't mind. And then he starts kissing her, and they start making out, and the exact same scene starts up again. The romantic music, the take these broken wings, licking, caressing, and then all of a sudden we cut to one of the great jump cuts again, him just pounding away on her on top of her gravestone.
Right?
Same noises.
Wow.
And then right, and then a further sort of step away as you get like a gravedigger person like walking along, and he just looks over, and it's just Will humping the air.
Yes, it's Will Forte humping nothing, doing his Although there's a great scene of him and Maya Rudolph facing each other. She's making funny noises too.
Yeah, well, yeah, she's totally into it, and I love you get a close up of both of them, and he's just spittle and all, just like, I'm gonna shoot.
God,
just right in her face. It's, oh my God, it's so insane.
Wow, yeah, that is not the type of scene you expect in an SNL movie.
I'm gonna shoot. I'm gonna fucking shoot. I'm gonna shoot too. Let's shoot together.
No, my God, no. Yeah, it really, yeah, it's probably the furthest any SNL related comedy has ever gone.
Oh God.
In terms of raunchiness. And so after that, we also get we come full circle with the license plate as well.
Oh yeah, we get the payoff. That's right. MacGruber has spent the entire movie obsessing over this license plate of the guy who made fun of his car in Vegas, like literally an hour ago in the movie. And after he has ghost sex with his dead wife on her headstone, he happens to walk out in the parking lot, and whoa, what a fortuitous event. There's the car parked right there, and he's so angry he keys it, and then...
Well, yeah, he just immediately rolls right into it, of like he's just been waiting, and just he sees it and immediately keys out, starts to go, smashing windows out, all while having a very sort of naturalistic, calm conversation with Powers Booth, as I think he's relating that Vicky has been kidnapped.
Yeah, he's on the phone with a colonel, and it's an important conversation for the movie. And all the meanwhile, MacGruber is keying and smashing and burning this car. Right. Although, what's funny is there's a newspaper on the back seat that says "President to give State of the Union tonight." And that's when MacGruber realizes where the bomb's going to explode. So it actually is a plot point.
Right.
And the guy shows up, right? The guy who drives the car?
Yeah, as he's walking away, he's like, "Hey, that's my car." He's like, "Fuck you."
Yeah, that's the payoff to the entire storyline. There's no fight. He just keys the car.
Yeah, and just rolls out. Yeah. Such a petty character.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but that sex scene, that is one of the top 10 funniest things I have ever seen in a movie. So, and I'm not just, I mean, you go on YouTube and you see the videos, and these have been posted dozens of times, and just everyone under the comments in YouTube, it's people's horror stories of them watching this movie with their parents and not realizing that scene was coming.
Luckily, I think my parents have a good enough sense of humor that I think we all probably would have fallen out. But
well, yeah, I should hope so, because your parents are dicks.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Well, pun on the name for my listeners. I'm making sure my listeners caught that one. All right, so what happens is after the graveside, he goes back to tell Vicky it's okay, we can be with each other, and we find out that she has been kidnapped. And this will go into the last part of the movie, that Von Kuntz has kidnapped Vicky. He's going to set off a bomb at the State of the Union, and this is where MacGruber tells Kuntz over the phone. He's like, throughout the whole movie, there's three things that MacGruber wants in this movie. He wants to, A, rip people's throats out as often as he can.
Right.
B, get the license plate, that car that insulted him, and get back at him. And then C, the most noble one perhaps, he wants to cut off Von Kuntz's dick and shove it in his mouth. It's our noble hero.
Yes. And so we get a suiting up scene, but in a very sort of MacGruber, way. It's like pennies in the belly button, a thumbtack in the toes, rubber bands and crap over here. He hasn't actually suited up with anything useful.
Well, don't forget the celery. He puts the celery down the pants.
Oh, yes, and we got the celery comes back. So, yeah, him and Felipe roll up to Kuntz's compound. Which gets our first throat rip. We've been hearing about it for so long, and they're kind of like on the outskirts of the compound, and roll up to some sentry just kind of walking around, and just MacGruber just graphically rips his throat out and is so excited about it.
Yeah, this is literally the thing that gives MacGruber the most pleasure in life, is ripping someone's throat out. And Will Forte gets the greatest maniacal grin when he does it.
Yes. As Felipe is just horrified at this. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, so MacGruber does his first throat rip at the compound, and then he sees a second guy, and he does a little quip. He's like, "Here's some throat lozenges. You're going to want to take a whole box of these." And then he rips his throat out with a big grin on his face, and Felipe's like, "What the F, man? That's so gross." Although, I have to say, great Kristen Wiig moment. We kind of been not giving her enough credit here.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene here with her and Val Kilmer in the compound, that she's all tied up, and she's like, "Stick it where the sun don't shine, Dieter." And he's like, "Where might that be?" And Kristen Wiig, just with the perfect beat, "Where might that be where the sun doesn't shine?" She's like, "Your butt. In your butthole."
And then he puts the mouth thing back in there. It's like, all right, let's stop that. And I love also when they finally find her later on, because she kind of disappears as they make their way to her. She's completely fallen over on the chair and in some sort of attempt to leave, but still so happy. He's like, "Hey, MacGruber!" As she's laying on the ground.
Okay, so we're in the final compound. This is the final fight of the movie, and MacGruber has done his first two throat rips, and now he's excited because he might get the elusive third throat rip.
He's looking for the turkey.
The turkey. And if people don't know, that's an actual bowling term for
Right.
3 strikes in a row. And Felipe's like, what's a turkey? And MacGruber's like, well, it's a bowling term, and you get 3 strikes in a row. And I'm going to do 3 throat rips because I have applied the bowling term to throat rips. And Felipe's like, what the hell, dude? Although, okay, I have to give praise to this joke. Like I said, there's about 8 to 10 laugh out loud, legitimate funny moments in this movie, and this is one that always gets me, is that MacGruber goes into the control room in the compound. He kills the guy there, and then he announces on the PA, hey, Von Kuntz, I'm in your compound now. Come on up to the control room. I got a little surprise for you. And so Kuntz sends every one of his guards up to the control room. And what is the surprise that MacGruber has left for him?
He's strung up the guy that he's just killed, duct taped him to have his middle fingers up, and I believe also the commentary, they tried their best to have his middle toe up as well. And a sign that I think just says like "suck it" or something like that. No,
okay. I will do this justice because this is the one that's so close to my heart here that.
Okay, yeah, I whiffed it.
MacGruber has done the Home Alone gag, where he has the doorknob booby trapped and a little thing above that when they open the door it will spill on them. Except it's the smallest styrofoam cup of water. So when they burst in, this tiny little cup of water spills on all 8 bad guys.
Yeah, that is a very much blink and you'll miss it gag.
Yeah, but then the dead guard that's holding up the middle fingers, he has a sign that says "You're all wet."
Oh.
That's what. Yeah, when they burst in the room, they see the sign that says "You're all wet." But in keeping with MacGruber, he has misspelled it where it's just Y-O-U-R in giant childlike script.
Yeah.
So that's a surprise. They got slightly wet. Okay, so let's wrap this up here. We go to the end of the last showdown, and there's a big gunfight in the warehouse, and Ryan Phillippe, of course, doing all the work, doing all the shooting, and MacGruber is fishing around looking for some kind of bomb he can make, and this is where he's like, I got this wrench, I got this bottle cap. Tell me, Piper, be on the lookout for one large brown egg. Phillippe's like, shut the fuck up, MacGruber. I won't use a gun, though. That's the key. MacGruber will not use a gun.
Right. Until now.
Yeah, until now. And this is yet another just laugh out loud moment and why this movie is so much funnier than it should be that MacGruber's like, I don't know how to use a gun. And Phillippe's like, you just point it and shoot. Point it and pull the trigger. And MacGruber's like, that's it? That's as hard as it is? So we get the wonderful sight gag of MacGruber shooting a gun for the first time, which is him popping up with the biggest shit-eating grin on his face you've ever seen, waving the guns at any random thing in any direction and shooting them simultaneously, one to the left, one to the right, not even coming close to anything.
Right. It's just the most wild spastic motions. And then he gets down there, he's like, this is awesome!
Yeah. He's like, I got a barrel! And Phillippe's like, aim for a person!
And then you get the shot as they, get out of cover, and Felipe is like your normal action guy running and popping off shots and killing guys. And it's all slow motion. You cut to MacGruber, again, slow motion, just hands waving like a wild, wacky arm guy, just shooting guns everywhere. Big old shit-eating grin on his face.
The Will Forte spaz attack is the best way to describe this scene.
Yes. And again, the childlike joy that he gets from it. So good.
Well, speaking of childlike joy, this is immediately followed by the scene where he gets his 3rd throat rip. He gets the elusive turkey.
Yes.
And it's like Felipe knocks this guy out. He's falling down. And you can see that Forte wants to go over and rip the throat out. And he's like salivating. He can see the guy's throat. And Felipe gives him the go-ahead. Fine, go ahead. I know it gives you joy. So Forte rips the guy's throat out. It's so graphic. All of them they splatter blood on the camera when the throat rips out.
Right.
And then he gobbles at him. So it's very nice. He got the turkey.
But yeah, so finally our big showdown with Kuntz, which I gotta say, I mostly enjoy this movie. I think the one big misstep this film has is this whole scenario here just doesn't quite come off. The big showdown with Val Kilmer feels a little bit underwhelming.
So wait, you're saying there's flaws in MacGruber?
Yes. I didn't know if we were going to get critical, any sort of film criticism here. But, yeah, I mean,
It feels rushed.
it really does feel rushed. Like, they didn't have too many great ideas for this. I did like Kunth cutting off a bit of his mullet, and that's what sends MacGruber into his fit of rage. And we also get Ryan Felipe bringing back the celery trick to confuse people. So, through a very rushed sequence of events, we've chained Kunth up to some part of the wall, and we run up to the missile. And this is actually kind of where the film, for the first time, actually resembles the sketch a bit.
Yeah, they actually go into the sketch here.
Yeah, basically, I think the usual song starts up and everything, and
3 minutes, MacGruber.
Yeah, you even get the 3 minutes, MacGruber. Okay, MacGruber. But strangely enough, I don't know. This just kind of I don't know. He doesn't know how to disable it, but then he just takes out the nuclear material and then the guidance system, and Kunt's like, oh, drat.
Yeah, it's not really climactic enough.
Yeah, it just really doesn't have a great joke to go along with it. Like that's the weird thing, is that we've been able to supplant all of our other action sequences with some good jokes, and then this just kind of, even when we're like, okay, hey, it's the beats of the sketch, and even that doesn't really come to much fruition. So kind of strange to have this one scene just kind of fart. And it's like the big climactic one, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay.
I was going to say the irony here is they're wandering material that already works on TV, and they don't really sell it or dwell on it. They just kind of do the sketch. Although there is a fantastic joke in here that I always forget about, where 3 minutes, MacGruber, and he's like, give me this, give me the copper wire, give me the ball bearing. He's like, here's this ring, and he gives the ring to Vicky to propose to her, and she's like, aw, and then he's like, this is where he announces the news, because he's trying to spring it on her and get it past her. He's like, I porked Casey's ghost last night. We can talk about that later. So anyway, this is the wrap-up of the movie. MacGruber tries to disable the bomb. There's hundreds of wires in there. He can't do it. He's, in his own words, I'm more of a 3-wire guy. They basically flee. They leave the bomb to blow up. They run out, and everything explodes. They basically save the day. They think Kunth is dead. And that should be the end of the movie, but there is one last scene after this.
Epilogue. Vicky and MacGruber get married.
All right, so 6 months later, we go to the wedding of Vicky and MacGruber, and basically they think Kunth's dead and everything has been saved, and he's at the altar marrying Vicky, and this is where Kunth pulls up again. He's not dead. He survived the explosion, and he's going to blow up and destroy their wedding, just like he destroyed Casey's wedding.
Right.
And it's a very fun, very graphic sequence where first Kunth shoots a missile into the priest, which is always nice, seeing a priest blow up.
Yes.
And then they have a fist fight, and basically MacGruber beats the crap out of Von Kunth, and this is where earlier in the movie he said as he's going to rip out his dick and shove it in his throat. That's his big catchphrase. So he's like, Kunth, suck your own dick. And lo and behold, Kunth doesn't have one. It was blown off in the explosion.
Which, of course, we see.
Of course we see. A very graphic shot of Val Kilmer's fake pseudo-crotch.
Right.
Just as doughy as the rest of him, by the way. And so MacGruber doesn't get his revenge. He can't kill Kunth the way he wanted to. So instead, he does another way. He one-ups himself, where he headbutts Val Kilmer over a cliff, and then as the corpse is falling down to the ground from these giant heights, he pulls out a gun and starts shooting the corpse while yelling, "Fuck you, dude!" When Val Kilmer's body hits the ground, MacGruber shoots a missile into it and explodes it, and then pisses on it. And then immediately he turns around to the priest and says, "I do," and then the music comes out, MacGruber!
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
So it is nice that, even though the whole climactic showdown didn't quite work with the missile and all that, it does end on a high note for sure. That last gag of shooting him with the machine gun as he falls, exploding him with a grenade, and then pissing on his corpse is like, okay, very nice. That's how you wrap it up.
Yes, and as the critics of America once said, What reason is there for this movie to exist?
I think we found it.
Anyway, that's MacGruber, one of the wildest, just out of control comedies you're ever going to see. So much more racy and hardcore than anybody ever expected an SNL movie would be, with, I would say, about 8 to 10 legitimate laugh out loud moments and, oh my God, both sex scenes.
Yes. So yeah, I'm very glad to have seen this. I want to thank you for having finally pushed me to check this one out. I had heard good things beforehand, but it was your recommendation. I was like, well, if Mario says it's good, then it has to be good. And yeah, it's been great every single time. And one that every single time I've watched it, I've seen it 3 times now. I laugh at something I didn't even notice the last time.
Like the water cup. You didn't even notice the little tiny water cup.
Right, yeah. So that whole scene didn't even parse for me. But yeah, eventually there are things that will. Yeah, the whole I love holes was the one that got me this time. I was like, I do not remember that, but that is just as caustic as anything else in this crazy-ass film.
You know what's funny is I'm going to put that sex scene at the end of this podcast. I always do a little stinger of my favorite sound clip from the movie.
Oh, God.
People will get to listen to Will Forte noises as they are drifting
So
off.
you're going to leave them?
Yeah, that's the last thing I want you to hear from this podcast.
Oh, Christ almighty.
All right, before we go, do you want to plug your podcast one more time? Tell people how they can find you, how they can listen to your show?
Yeah, That Week in SNL, as I stated before, we cover old episodes of SNL. We put in sound clips in there to help kind of give you a context of the sketch we're talking about if you don't remember them, which, you know, can happen for 35-year-old episodes of television that SNL has seemingly no interest in archiving properly on the internet. And, yeah, we just have fun, joke around, go through tangents. It's kind of like this discussion here. And as we stated, me and Mario did the Dolly Parton episode together. So why don't you go start with that? If you're too scared to just hear me and my co-host Timmy, there is another episode with just me and Mario hacking it up. And it's pretty much, you can find it everywhere you find your podcasts, your iTunes and your Stitches and all that. And come find us on Twitter at That Week in SNL, where we're always getting rowdy.
You know what the best thing about having you on this podcast was, Andrew?
What's that?
You and your dick comments.
I love making them.
That's why I listen. All right, again, my name is Mario Lanza. This is Staff Picks. If you need to reach me, you can reach me on email at staffpickspodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at Mario J. Lanza. Until the next time, I will be out there searching for more movies that deserve more love, and I'll find somebody interesting to come on and talk about them. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh, I'm gonna do it.